All these rejections from the middle Bollinger Band.
Resistance we're going to need
If you
to
actually
get
see
through.
here, we get a
And we'll look for a
hard
healthy
time.
higher
I
low.
would not
have
be
the
eager
bull
to
market
enter a long trade.
Hello everyone, hope you're having a good weekend. We're going to look at a bunch of tickers here, a bunch of coins. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin. Then we'll look at BNB, OMG, XMR, EOS, and ZRX. Just some things members wanted to look at, and not sure I'm going to get to the usual live tomorrow as I am in the process of relocating. As you can see, all my fancy decorations behind me are gone. So we're going to start on the weekly time frames and zoom in because the bulls did show up yesterday. And the question is, can they follow through? So the weekly candlesticks, which are going to close tomorrow, are currently forming bullish reversal candlesticks. And obviously, we need follow through and confirmation of these candlesticks with a green week this coming week. And we look at the daily time frame, and right now it's not too impressive. The only notable things are, number one, we have a double bottom on Bitcoin. We bounced right off of that low. And in the last video, we highlighted how the bulls did defend that level initially. And we came very close. We came within $13 of that, but the bulls held on. And then we broke the lower highs. So the high of the little bounce attempt initially was 6,340, and we have broken that. So essentially, we have a double bottom and a break of the lower highs. This is the first sign you get on a trend change. To confirm the trend change from here, we need a daily higher low and higher high. So we've broken the lower highs. Now we need a higher low and continuation for confirmation. The downtrend line on this RSI, it did break bullish, and we're just looking for the follow through. So at this point, we have seen the action where we get brief spikes with no follow through. And just looking back on the hourly time frame to compare, the one difference this time around is this little bull flag on the hourly and then continuation. So it wasn't just one little spurt of 20 minutes of bull volume and then fading for a dozen hours. We did get a couple hours of consolidation and then a second big spurt of green bull volume. And you scroll back and you look at the previous ones that we have had, and they all really occurred on one move. And even here where it's spread across two candlesticks, it's because the move was initiated and then the candlestick closed and then we saw continuation. We didn't really have any healthy consolidation and then continuation just a couple hours later. And I'm looking all the way back to the top back in April, and that hasn't really happened since then. So it is notable in that regard that this is the first significant follow through, probably one of the biggest percentage moves and follow through that we've seen since the April move. And looking back at on the weekly for April, that was when we had our month of upside. And again, we're not looking to change any trend on the weekly time frame. The bulls are trying to change the trend on the daily, and then we'll bounce on the weekly instead of lower high compared to the 9,948 recent high that we have had. So weekly longer term trend is not changing anytime soon. It's just the bulls trying to confirm a daily trend change. So what's been going on since last night? We've got this consolidation again. Had this occurred without this other leg up, we'd say, oh, here we go again. Same thing as always, and looking for a big drop down. This one leg up could change things. Again, we have to be cautious because at this point, we're getting healthy 4-hour consolidation. We need a 4-hour higher low to be established and then continuation. The exponential moving averages are catching up. And this consolidation at this point is no red flag whatsoever. We ran extremely hard. The RSIs on the hourly got really overbought up in the 80s. Haven't seen that in a long time. Hourly RSI, highest price that we've seen since back when we spiked up to the upper $6,000 range. But it's healthy consolidation at this point. Our brains are trained at this point to say, uh-oh, we've seen this before, and we're getting ready for another big drop down, as we have seen time and time again. Another thing notable is this was not news related and probably futures related to the futures closing. The question is, do we follow through and confirm the daily trend change? And we don't have to see it right away. We can pull back and form a little daily high or low and then see continuation. We're going to be watching over the next couple of days. The big red flag would obviously be a big red hourly candlestick with a big pullback that we've seen a couple of these times. And again, I'm just looking back historically, what has happened when we get these big bull moves, and it's the big bear moves that follow after it that really have left the bulls disheartened. So that's what we're keeping an eye out for. If we get it, then we will say, oh, here we go again. This is the same scenario we've seen before. It was just a bigger bounce before we got that scenario. If not, if we get this 4-hour continuation, then that will be notable for the shift in momentum that is ongoing, and we'll be then shifting our target. If we do get continuation, we're then going to be looking up to 6,829 and making our way back towards $7,000. So a lot of work for the bulls still to do. This is, again, it's a notable bull move, but we still need proof and we still need follow through. So that's where we stand on Bitcoin. Did see some nice follow through on some of the other names as well. The altcoins definitely some of them ran harder than Bitcoin. So a bullish reversal candlestick trying to form on Ethereum, trying to form a hammer or a doji by the end of tomorrow. Daily time frame hasn't really broken any lower highs. So the trend change attempt on Bitcoin is notable, not really on Ethereum. So we can see the last little bounce attempt, it's just been lower highs every little bounce attempt. So there's no clear spike like Bitcoin has. So again, on the daily time frame, there was a clear move and then a pullback, and then we broke that move. Whereas Ethereum, there's no real clear move to break at this point. I'm looking up at 547, and now our new lower high is here at 462, and we're clearly a lot weaker because the high of June 23rd is still well above the price that we reached. And we look at the high of June 23rd on Bitcoin, and that was down. Then we moved $250 above that level. So Ethereum's weakness over the last week comparative to Bitcoin is definitely showing up here, and it's slowing this move down, and we're nowhere near changing this daily trend. If you show me the Bitcoin daily chart, I'd say, okay, we need to pay attention for a potential daily trend change because we broke the lower highs. You show me this Ethereum daily chart, and I say, yeah, okay, that's just a weak bounce, and we're probably going to set a lower high and head back down to test the lows. So Ethereum is not impressive at this point. It is trying to form a 4-hour higher low. Looks like one of my exponential moving averages has disappeared, but we've got the 12-period exponential, which support is going to be coming up, and the bulls potentially will be looking for an equilibrium. The more we pull back on the 4-hour time frame, the more the odds shift to an equilibrium and a lower high on a bounce rather than just continuation to a higher high. So still watching Bitcoin as the lead here and noting that Ethereum is a bit weaker. Litecoin on the weekly time frame, also trying for a bullish reversal, little hammer or a doji. Nothing very impressive yet. We did break the high of the initial little bounce attempt, but not by a lot. 84.49, actually we only broke it by a penny, so that's a double top. So we hit the bottom, we bounced and hit 84.49. We came down and just barely hit a lower low, and now we have a double top. So very clear rejection from resistance at 84.50, and the bulls will have to break that level to see continuation. Same thing, we're rejecting from daily exponential resistance. Checking Bitcoin's daily exponential resistance, we are over the 12 period, and at the height of the move, it was the furthest above the 12 period we have been since 10,000. But Ethereum and Litecoin, again, neither of them are doing anything on the daily that would make me want to pay extra attention. We have a rejection from the daily exponential. We have a big upper wick of profit taking. I did have a Litecoin position on that move that I established in this tightening daily range, and I have since taken half of that profit in the low 80s at about 80.50 or so, and I will likely exit the second half if we get no follow through on the 4-hour time frame. So again, clear double top, have to form a 4-hour higher low and see continuation. The increasing 4-hour bear volume, never a good sign. We want to see declining bear volume and healthy consolidation. We're already testing exponential support a little bit ahead of the game as Bitcoin is not there yet. So just to summarize these three, Bitcoin, strongest move on the daily time frame, most clear bull break, has to see follow through with a higher low and a higher high to confirm the daily trend change. Ethereum is weakest of these three by far, still trying to establish some turnaround and momentum on the daily time frame, not doing a whole lot. Litecoin has a clear double top, also not doing much on the daily time frame, a little bit more healthy than Ethereum is. But overall, not an impressive move on these two names, much more impressive on Bitcoin, but even then, it's only impressive because of what we've been used to the last 6 weeks with bulls nowhere to be found. BNB USDT, the weekly time frame has been grinding this 12-period exponential moving average support for months at this point, still holding on, and the daily chart's trying to make its way back into the middle of this range. So remember, we've got our little double bottom and our double top in this tightening range. The bulls are trying to make their way back to the middle of this range in the 1550s, getting fairly close. 1515 is the resistance level right now. Still favoring the bears where we stand. It's much closer to break support than it is to break resistance. If the bulls get us to about 1550 or so, that'll even the playing field. But as of right now, the bears still have the upper hand, and we have to be cautious. The 4-hour time frame, little higher low, higher high pattern. And if we do lose these supports, we're going to be looking back down to test these daily support levels, which are approaching. So short term, 1435 and 1426 are supports. Then we got 1373 and the low down at 1335. So a little bit of an uptrend to be watching on the 4-hour time frame. Daily chart is stalling a little bit, hitting some resistance, and it's very clear these daily levels with our double top and our double bottom. OMG USD also breaking the higher low pattern on the weekly. So on any bounce, we will anticipate a weekly lower high, and that's the case on anybody that has lost the weekly higher lows, and that's most names. So attempting the bullish reversal candlestick, daily time frame, again, this bounce is doing nothing. Just touching exponential resistance where we rejected from last time, no clear lower high being broken, and that last clear lower high is all the way up at 965. So top of the move is 782. 4-hour time frame, trying for healthy consolidation, still holding on well. We could see another leg up, but the daily chart is not going to change this trend on this move because there's no lower highs to break. So step number one to breaking a trend oftentimes, not every time, but is a break of the lower highs. Bitcoin has done it. Ethereum and Litecoin have not done it. OMG has not done it. So that puts them a step behind where we need consolidation for a daily higher low and higher high, just like Bitcoin needs it, but it's much more likely to happen on Bitcoin because of the percentage drop that would be required to drop right down to a lower low, whereas these names, it's not as significant a percentage drop down to a lower low, and it's just not established, not a very established move at this point because of the lack of any kind of bull attempt previously. So OMG, a lot of work to do for the bulls. 4-hour time frame, healthy consolidation still. 739 is the most important short-term support, and you can see we have a tightening hourly range with our low of consolidation, a couple resistance levels before the high of this move. Overall, still favoring the bulls. Bitcoin would like it if Bitcoin looked this way. You can see that none of the three names that we just looked at look this strong on the hourly time frame, still in continuation mode, holding exponential support and looking up towards resistance, whereas Bitcoin on the hourly lost exponential support and has a bit of work to do to make its way back towards some of the resistance levels. And here was an attempt. Let's look at this attempt on Bitcoin real quick. Short-term time frame. Bulls saw a spike in volume, tried to make their way up towards resistance, and it was immediately met with a ton of bear volume that it completely wiped that move out and set the tone for the bears to have the rest of the morning and afternoon. So OMG, let's see if the bulls can keep up the hourly higher lows and break some resistance for some continuation. Next daily resistance, if we do get a break of 782, I'm looking up at 8 psychological is the next level. XMRUSD, weekly time frame forming an inside bar this week. So the bounce has already started here. It's further along than everybody else. We have the low of the pullback, the high of the initial bounce of that move, higher low formed, and now we are breaking to a higher high, but we're not getting a lot of follow through. You can see the wicks rejecting from the top of the bounce previously. Most important short-term support on the daily is 113.54, and I've got resistance at 140, and let's see, that looks like it's a fluke of a spike on the 5-minute time frame there, and actually it might have been real, the volume behind it. So it does look like we did actually get up to that level. So 140 will be resistance. And whenever I'm looking to see if a move is real or not, and oftentimes in stocks you get, these blips that don't have any volume backing it up, so you disregard it on the chart. But all of these blips have volume behind it, so it does look like they were market orders that did hit those extreme levels. So daily time frame, it's all about 140 and 170 as some resistances. And again, clear daily higher lows that the bulls need to maintain. You can see the exponential moving averages shifting a little bit, trying to get a bull cross, trying to get over these moving averages. And that's something I'm looking for the major players to do as well. I'm going to be a lot more confident and say, all right, now we are definitely shifting momentum once these moving averages are support and they do give us a bull cross, which has not happened in a long time in the more major names. EOSUSD also trying for a weekly inside bar bullish reversal candlestick. The daily time frame. High of the bounce initially is up at 848, and we have not broken that yet. So we have the low, high of the bounce, higher low, and so far it's a lower high. So the 4-hour time frame is just a bigger, broad equilibrium, just bouncing around within this range, and no clear bull break yet. Have to get over 848 for continuation. Next level after that is 877, and in terms of support, 703 is the level that the bulls need to hold to maintain a daily higher low. Bounce not really developed at all, not anywhere near the exponential resistance just yet. A lot of work to do. So it's very clear right now that XMR is the furthest along, trying to change the trend on the daily time frame. I would say Binance obviously is in a much better position than everybody else because its chart looks way different and it's a weekly uptrend. Nobody else has a weekly uptrend, and nobody else that we're covering, that is. And Bitcoin's number 2 so far. And last, we'll wrap it up with ZRXBTC. Weekly bullish reversal candlestick trying to form to maintain an uptrend. Daily chart needs to change the trend for us to be confident that our weekly higher low has been established, and we're not anywhere near doing that. The last clear lower highs of resistance, 1485, another one here at 1346, and another one here at 12.9. So just lower high after lower high, need a clear daily high or low, and then continuation to try and change this trend. And solid moves from the lows, no doubt about that. We went from 9.8 essentially up to 12.9. That is, a solid 30+%. But in terms of changing the daily trend, it's just not happening yet. So summarizing everything that I just said, Bitcoin, most bullish action that we've seen on these moves yet since the April action that was favoring the bulls for 5 weeks. So that, got our attention. Now we need the follow through. We can give the bulls a little bit of the benefit of the doubt and, either hold some positions if anybody was fortunate enough to get in on the way up initially, if they were sitting at the computer and saw the spike. Break even stop losses is the best way to go here because, again, we don't have confidence. We have, the starting signs. We're keeping an eye out, but we do not have confidence in the bulls right now. They have to prove it to us. Remember, it is the burden of proof in the opposing direction of the trend. We cannot give them any benefit of the doubt. We have to remain skeptical. That's where we stand right now. Give me follow through. Give me a 4-hour solid higher low and higher high. That will change things even more. And we'll say, all right, these bulls look for real. Let's see a weekly bounce. And if that were to happen, again, that's a big if, but if we were to get this daily trend changed and this weekly bounce going, I'd be looking for a weekly lower high, just conservative target in the 7.5 to upper 7,000 range. So potential significant upside, 20% or so, looking for just a weekly lower high, but we have to change the daily trend, and we have not confirmed doing that just yet. So let's check in on story time. We wrapped it up. This is a long one. Wrapped it up yesterday. We were heading into Utah. So when you're crossing the border from Colorado into Utah, you go to Dinosaur National Monument. There's not much else nearby there, but it's a pretty cool spot where, just along the trails, you can see dinosaur bones that are literally just mixed in the rock here that they've carved out a little bit. So some cool fossils and things like that. Could be cool if you have little kids to go through. The names of the roads are pretty cool. Brontosaurus Way. But other than that, just a quickie to pass through, not something. And when you're traveling through Utah, you want to make sure you have good water. And if you break down in some of these places that I was going, you'd be in a little bit of trouble if you didn't have water. So make sure and carry your water around. But this is definitely a more arid, dry place, and you need to protect yourself from the sun. So that was a quick pass through. Then I loved going to these petroglyphs, and these are all over the place. You can find websites that just tell you where they are. Again, BLM land on the side of the road. You can go to these rocks where Native Americans were carving things. This looks like the devil opening up a fourth dimension. But it's just interesting to watch, what were these symbols and trying to do your own interpretation. It looks like there were definitely common themes and patterns, and these are all over the state and all over the Southwest and Midwest. And they're just on the side of these roads. So you pull up, and there's me standing next to one of the dudes. Looks like a priest guy with a headdress on. But it's a dirt road. There's the dirt road, middle of nowhere. These entire rock cliffs are covered in all kinds of animal drawings and all these petroglyphs. And it's really cool to just stand there with nobody else around and to be literally exactly where someone stood 300, 500, 800 years ago, carving into this rock. And that's just a spot that you can go hang out and camp wherever you want. I picked a nice spot by the river and woke up the next morning by a moose splashing in this river. So a moose woke me up, and it was just sitting in the water, hanging out most of the day. This little sandbar ended up getting slightly covered by the water, and it was really silty. And I spent the morning sprinting along this thing and just sliding on my feet, and you'd slide 8 feet. A lot of fun. Some rafters came down, some whitewater rafters, and just a really cool spot to hang out and not have anything to do but explore some ancient petroglyphs and hang out in the water. So from there, I went to Fifth Springs Hot Springs, I believe it's called. Either way, really cool hot springs that's a little bit more developed in terms of people building the pools out, and they all have different temperatures, and you can see the color of the water is due to the minerals from the geothermic activity going on and the sulfur. And so the river, this is a cold river, once it's mixed with all the water, but still really cool colors. So it's another one that you just hike up. I forget the distance, maybe 4 miles or something, and you camp up near the top, and it's right next to those pools, and you can just wake up early enough that you're the only one there, and it's really enjoyable to have a soak. From there, went to Arches National Park, and really cool spot. Arches and Canyonlands are right next to each other. And just, you know, these big rock formations, you've probably seen in a bunch of pictures and magazines. So they're all over these different trails that you hike around and check out. And some of them are definitely, you know, really, like, you wonder how they're still standing. This looks like it could fall any minute, which probably means any century. But really cool rock formations to check out. And it's another place where you just get a little permit and hike out a few miles, and you can camp wherever you want. So there's my tent on a rock, and you know, behind me over here on this side is a big arch to be watching during the sunset. And it's the kind of thing where these parks during the summer, especially during the summer, they're very crowded, and there's a ton of tourists. You know, people flock from the world to our national park system. It's probably what our government has done the most right, which isn't saying a whole lot, but national park system is definitely world renowned. So there's a ton of Europeans coming through, and I always like, you know, interacting with them on the trails and seeing where people are from. Had a German family, actually. There's a Do Good Things. That just reminded me. I was at a more developed campsite one night when I was here, or that was in Canyonlands, actually, which we'll go to tomorrow. But they were a German family, and the sun was setting, and they had nowhere to camp, and the campground was full. And they asked if they could share my campground because it was just me and my tent, and I said absolutely. So there was a nice German family who was biking around. I think they were biking from Canada to Mexico, and it was a couple and their younger child. Pretty sure that's what it was. But just interacting with all these people from all these different countries, so happy to be there, and all the different languages you hear. But the point was that, you know, there's a ton of RVs and a ton of you know, cars and traffic on these main attractions. So I don't want to give the false impression where if you go to a national park, you're by yourself, because you have to work to get by yourself and enjoy, you know, if you're going on the main roads at the peak seasons, it's extremely crowded. You're going to always be around people, and there's always cars everywhere. So you have to hike out a few miles to get where you want to go. So here, you know, I could have chosen the developed campground and paid, let's say, $15, $20 and had running water and a bathroom and been surrounded by, you know, another 150 people. Or I could get the permit for $5 to $10, not have running water, but bring my own water and food and hike out and be by myself. So that's the option that you have, but you do have to work to get your solitude if you want it. And there's the solitude. That's just me. So next we'll go to Canyonlands, which is right down the road. If you're going to Arches, you go to Canyonlands, and if you're going to Canyonlands, you go to Arches. They're, you know, maybe 2.5 hours away from each other. And Bryce Canyon National Park will be next, and just exploring more through Utah. And then I ended up going through Nevada and stayed in Vegas for a while. And that'll be the next chapter. So I hope you all have a good rest of your weekend. Not sure if I'm coming on live tomorrow or if I'm making a video tomorrow. Moving around, busy, but I will do my best. And usually I find time to do it. Thanks again. Do good things. We'll see you tomorrow.